Hello, fans, collectors, and investors. Welcome back to Iconic Baseball. I'm Iconic Al, and I am especially excited for this episode, number 57 on my top 100. It is the greatest hitter that I've ever seen, period. The greatest hitter of my lifetime, and one of the great contact hitters in baseball history. His .338 career average really sets him apart from pretty much any other hitter during his time. His stats are a bit of a conundrum. His 69.2 WAR would suggest that maybe he's a borderline Hall of Famer, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. He was elected with 98% of the Hall of Fame vote on his first ballot. His 8 batting titles ties him for the most in National League history with Honus Wagner. And only one man in baseball history has more batting titles than Tony Gwynn, and his name is Ty Cobb. This guy is one of the elite hitters we've ever seen in the game. I can't wait to dig into some of these stats because they are ridiculous, just crazy stuff. I also have a very special item, a game-used piece that I really am excited to show on this video today. One of the pieces that I'm really proud of in my collection, and one that is truly unique and special. So without any further ado, I'm introducing Mr. Padre, the great Tony Gwynn.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and cracker jack. I don't care if I never get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Little investment advice. Bip Roberts, 1986 rookie card, worth about $275. 20 years from now, who knows? 1,000, 2,000, might even go.
Yo, Bip, man, you were looking at Robin Roberts. Says here your card's worth 4 cents.
Yo, T, 4 cents if it's in excellent condition, but 10 cents if it's totally mint.
Oh, sorry.
Although I try to remain unbiased in the course of doing these rankings and making these videos, I step back, try to really look objectively at the statistics, the achievements, and judge where they stand culturally. What is their iconic status in the hobby? In this case, I'll have to admit I'm a Tony Gwynn fan. I'm a big fan of Tony Gwynn, always have been. Coming of age in the 90s, in the hobby and as a fan of baseball, I've always watched Tony Gwynn in awe of what he could do with a baseball bat. Therefore, I have more items for Tony Gwynn than I have for most players. For a lot of these guys, these videos, I'm presenting 1, 2, or 3 items. And for Tony Gwynn, I got 7. So this video might be a little longer, but this is maybe, so far in this countdown, the one that I'm looking forward to the most. Because truly a guy that is a pillar for me in my collection. And I can't wait to get deep into these stats because Tony Gwynn was an anomaly. He was an outlier in so many ways. And if you look at the game today, there just aren't hitters in baseball today that are doing what Tony Gwynn did during his career. Let me give you a couple examples. A .338 career hitter. We don't have guys in baseball hitting .338 anymore. Even for a single season, and Tony Gwynn did that over a 19-year span. A .388 on base, compiled 3,141 hits, 847 OPS, 132 OPS plus. He was a 15-time All-Star, 7-time Silver Slugger, and he won 5 Gold Glove Awards. Early in his career, Tony Gwynn was a standout outfielder. We can't forget that he was a heck of a right fielder early in his career. Now, the reason why his WAR is only 69.2 is because later in his career, he was sort of a defensive liability. And I think if you look at his D-WAR, which is defensive WAR, for a career, he was at negative 7.5. So that can explain why Tony Gwynn is not an 80 WAR player. His D-WAR actually detracted from his overall WAR, bringing him down closer to a 70 WAR kind of player. But we can't forget that he was actually a Gold Glove outfielder for about the first half of his career. Now, he has 8 batting titles, and that's special. I mean, to lead the league in hitting 8 times, the National League 8 times, is a very, very special achievement. Only Honus Wagner, as I mentioned in the intro, has as many batting titles in the National League, and only Ty Cobb has more batting titles than Tony Gwynn in baseball. Some of the most mind-numbing statistics for Tony Gwynn are A, his strikeout totals, and B, his consistency when it comes to his batting average. He hit .343 at home and .334 on the road. He hit .345 versus right-handed pitchers, .325 against left-handed pitchers. He hit .346 in April, .333 in May, .344 in June, .325 in July, .348 in August, and .333 in September. His career .302 batting average with 2 strikes is unprecedented in the modern era. By far the best average with 2 strikes we have seen since numbers were recorded back in the mid-70s on counts. They didn't keep track of those numbers before 1970s. So in the modern era, when they kept these kind of stats, a .302 average with 2 strikes is ridiculous. The next best is Wade Boggs at a .262 average. So you have a true outlier here in Tony Gwynn, a .302 hitter with 2 strikes. That's not how it should go. When a hitter has 2 strikes on them, they shouldn't be a .300 hitter. And Tony Gwynn was truly an anomaly in that regard. If you look at his strikeouts, his career strikeout to walk ratio, 434 strikeouts, 790 walks. If you extrapolate his strikeout totals, it is ridiculous. He was striking out starting in 1991. These are his yearly strikeout totals. 19, 16, 19, 19, 15, 17, 28, 18, 14. He was striking out 18 and 28 times a season. That's like a week for Giancarlo Stanton. Over a 19-year period, Tony Gwynn struck out 434 times. Aaron Judge has struck out 501 times through his first 3 seasons. Judge has struck out more times in his first 3 seasons than Tony Gwynn did over a 19-year period. It's pretty crazy. In 1994, the strike-shortened year, Tony Gwynn, through 110 games, was hitting .394. So he was well on his way to challenging Ted Williams as a potential 400 hitter. At that point, he had 19 strikeouts and a .454 on base. He faced Greg Maddux 107 times in his career and didn't strike out. Another tidbit, Tony Gwynn struck out 3 times in a game once. Although he never got over the hump and got that World Series ring, in postseason play, which 27 games in the postseason, he hit .306, and in 9 World Series games, he hit .371. He had more walks than strikeouts in 19 straight seasons, the most to ever do that. As I mentioned, in 2007, he was elected to the Hall of Fame with 532 out of 545 votes, 98%. Mr. Padre stands alone, in my mind, in his era, as the greatest hitter. All right, let's dive into some items here. Now, most people that know Tony Gwynn know that his rookie year was 1983. But I have an oddball item that is from 1977, about 6 years prior to his debut in Major League Baseball. And here it is. This is a schedule from when he played basketball at SDSU, San Diego State. He played for the Aztecs, as you can see there, Aztec Fever. And there you see Tony Gwynn dribbling a basketball. He was a standout athlete. I think people forget that about Tony Gwynn, especially if you remember him later in his career. He had gained some weight. He was no longer the speedster that he was earlier in his career. We forget that he stole 319 bases, mostly in the first half of his career. He was a stolen base threat, for sure. But this is the schedule from his college basketball team, on which he was a star. He was a standout athlete. And this is a really cool item I found on eBay a couple years back. It's got a nice Miller High Life ad on the back of it. And it's just a really cool oddball item for Tony Gwynn. Predates his rookie cards by about 6 years. So I thought that was a really cool image of Tony Gwynn in a context that you just don't see. You don't see him dribbling a basketball ever. Actually, when I saw that, it was so striking to me that I had to own it. And I usually don't go outside of my scope very much, but this was one of those ones I made an exception for. It wasn't very expensive. I think I might have paid $25 or $30 for it, but it's got the cool factor to me. So that's that one. And then we have the rookie cards. We have the flagship, if you will, the 83 Topps, which is his most popular rookie card, also his most high population rookie card. This is in a PSA 9. This is an old slab. This was in my first PSA submission that I sent probably 20 some years ago to PSA, early on when they started grading cards. It was probably late 90s, early 2000s when I submitted this, and I was very thrilled to get a 9. Back in the day, I was, either finishing up high school or just starting college when I got this submission back. But this is probably a card that goes in the $150 to $200 range these days, which I think is a pretty good bargain, really. It's a higher population card. There's 5,000 9s on the population with about 700 10s. So it's still quite an attainable card for an all-time great. The image I think the image leaves something to be desired, given that you're staring at his posterior. But at least there's a nice portrait shot there that you can see as well. But that's Tony Gwynn's, I'd say, primary rookie card. I actually prefer the Donruss, the 83 Donruss, to the 83 Topps. It's much cheaper. You can pick up this card for $50 to $60, and there's a lower number of them in the pop report. There's about 3,500 or so graded 9 compared to the 5,000 of the Topps. So it's much cheaper than the Topps. I think it's a slightly nicer image than the Topps. It's much less expensive. It's lower population. It just seems like there's more pros than cons for the 83 Donruss. I like owning them both, but if I was just going to own one, I would probably pick the Donruss at the price. All right, let's look at the baseball next. This is a classic single-signed ballpoint, sweet spot, Tony Gwynn baseball. Not much else to say here except for just a really nice example of a Tony Gwynn autograph. This is on a Leonard Coleman National League ball with, I think it's JSA. Yep, JSA certified. And it seems to be getting harder and harder to find nice Tony Gwynn signed baseballs. You see a lot of them listed. Maybe they're faded out. Maybe they're on a non-official baseball. But it seems to be getting harder and harder to find a really clean National League ball signed in ballpoint pen that isn't bleeding or fading. And when you do, they seem to be picking up in value. Tony Gwynn, unfortunately, has passed away, and he died very young. So what we will see in the market here is the signatures are drying up, and there aren't as many out there on the market. The really nice ones are staying in collections, and then the ones of lower quality are the ones out there that are kind of still hanging around. But very happy to have this one. Really love this ball. Really love Tony Gwynn. And next we move to the SP buybacks. This is my favorite Gwynn SP buyback. This is the 97 SP, signed, low numbered. This is a Upper Deck issue with the UDA hologram, numbered 21 of 24. So there aren't many of these signed, not many of those out there. Nice clean autograph, beautiful card. I've done a previous video on 90s SP and how much I love them. This is the classic 97 SP design, later in Gwynn's career, but just a beautiful card, beautiful autograph, one that I just love and cherish. And here we have the 94 SP design with a little higher number. This is a 71 out of 367, so it's a higher number, but still a beautiful card. A nice smiling shot of Gwynn sitting on the bench, again with that UDA holo on the back. But I just love these cards. Just take me back to being a kid. These came out, really in the prime of my collecting, back when I was, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. We all go back to those days and think fondly about collecting. Okay, last but certainly not least, I'm very excited to show my Tony Gwynn game used batting gloves. Now, I used to be more into collecting game used material and batting gloves. I used to have 8 or 9 or 10 pairs of game used batting gloves from various players. Most of them are insignificant now. I remember I used to have Aubrey Huff game used batting gloves, which are probably worthless now. But I have since sold off all of those other gloves, and the one pair that I kept were the Tony Gwynn batting gloves. And it's because of how much I admire the guy, and also the gloves themselves. I just thought there was a great look to them. His signature Franklin gloves, and you can see how each finger is meticulously taped around each knuckle, which is what Tony Gwynn's preference was. He was very particular about his batting gloves, and you can see, good game use on these. Taped on each finger with his number 19 there. He did sign these, but this is a surface that didn't take well to Sharpie, and that Tony Gwynn signature has since faded out considerably, so you can barely make it out. But you can make out there is a date and a hit number. So this comes from a game on September 13th, 1999. And this was hit 3045. So there is kind of a documentation with these gloves and a provenance, which is really one of the other things I loved about owning these, was the history with Tony Gwynn being one of the great hitters of all time, and the fact that we can trace these back to a specific game on a specific date when he got a hit. And it happened to be his 3045th hit of his career. Again, just great game use on these. Such a one-of-a-kind item that I truly do cherish. And when I was talking about the provenance on these, it comes with a certificate from the Gwynn family. So this was signed by Alicia Gwynn. And these were initially, I think, a charity item through the Gwynn Foundation. And you can see on the certificate, they're certified as being from a game versus the Atlanta Braves on September 13th of 99, certifying it that he wore these while he got hit number 3045 of his career. So he had already achieved that 3,000 hit milestone. He was kind of already a living legend at that point. This is late in his career, but I am humbled to own these. I just love them. I haven't gotten them out for a little while, and every time I look at them, it just gives me the goosebumps. I love looking at these, and to think that Tony Gwynn wore these in a major league game and got a hit with them. I mean, that to me as a fan and a collector, that is the height of cool. All right. Well, thank you for sharing in my joy and my dorkiness and my fandom. If you're following the countdown, I thank you. and I urge you to subscribe if you are not subscribed already. And until next time, everyone, keep collecting and stay iconic.